Hey everyone, and welcome. I know a lot of you are probably starting to think about those RMDs and all the choices that come with them. It can be a bit overwhelming, but don't worry, we're here to break it down and make things a little bit easier.
Absolutely, and it's important to remember that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. What's right for one person might not be right for another.
So true. So let's get started with a quick refresher. RMDs, those are required minimum distributions. They kick in when you hit age 73 and apply to retirement accounts like your traditional IRAs and 401ks.
Basically, the government is saying, it's time to start enjoying that nest egg you've worked so hard to build.
Exactly. And luckily, Kiplinger put together a great guide on smart ways to use your RMDs.
Yeah, it's a great resource for anyone who's feeling a little lost or confused.
Perfect. Let's dive right into the options. Maybe the most obvious one is using those RMDs for your everyday expenses.
Yeah, that's a straightforward approach. And it always makes sense to use already taxed money for expenses, rather than pulling from a taxable account and getting hit with taxes again. John White over at Financial Guidepost is always stressing the importance of minimizing taxes.
Makes sense. John White really seems to have a knack for breaking these things down, doesn't he?
He does. He has a real talent for making these complex financial concepts understandable.
So using those RMDs for daily expenses. Now, what about using them to pay off any high-interest debt you might have, like credit card debt?
Oh, that's a smart move, especially with those crazy credit card interest rates these days.
Right. The article says the average rate is over 24%.
Think about it. For every $1,000 of credit card debt you wipe out using your RMD, you're saving yourself a whopping $244 a year in interest.
Wow, that's a serious chunk of change. Now, another thing a lot of people stressed about is having a solid emergency fund. Can RMDs help with that?
They absolutely can. And it's important because the article actually mentions that 2/3 of Americans feel behind on their emergency savings.
Wow, that's a lot of people. So using RMDs to beef up those savings could be a real game changer.
Especially with the great rates we're seeing on high-yield savings accounts and CDs right now.
Yeah, some of those rates are even outpacing inflation, which is a huge plus. So you're saying you can potentially grow your emergency fund while keeping it safe and accessible.
Exactly. You get the peace of mind of a solid emergency fund and the potential for growth.
It sounds like a win-win to me. Now, what if you don't need the cash right away? Could you reinvest those RMDs?
Of course. That's a fantastic option if you're looking to grow your wealth for the future. You can look at things like taxable brokerage accounts or a Roth IRA if you have earned income, even real estate.
What's so special about Roth IRAs? I hear a lot of people talking about those.
Well, with the Roth IRA, your contributions grow tax-free and you'll never have to worry about those pesky RMDs again.
It's a way to protect your money from taxes in the future, right?
Exactly.
Sounds like something John White would definitely recommend. He's all about smart tax planning, right?
Absolutely. He's always looking for ways to help his clients minimize their tax burden and keep more of their hard-earned money.
Speaking of taxes, are there any things we should watch out for when reinvesting those RMDs?
Definitely. The big thing to avoid is double taxation.
Yeah.
You've already paid taxes once on that money in your retirement account, so you don't want to reinvest it in a way that'll trigger another tax bill down the line.
Double taxation. Yikes. That sounds like a headache we definitely want to avoid.
For sure. The article quotes a financial advisor named Chris Whipple, who suggests finding ways to move those RMD funds so they'll never be taxed again.
Move them where they won't be taxed. How do you even do that?
Well, one strategy he mentions is using RMDs to fund a life insurance policy.
Life insurance. Now that's an interesting idea.
Right. It can be a really powerful way to create a tax-free inheritance for your beneficiaries. You're essentially cutting off those taxes before they even have a chance to take a bite.
So it's like a way to protect your legacy from taxes.
That's a great way to put it. John White is actually a big fan of using life insurance strategically like that, especially for people who are concerned about leaving a legacy for their loved ones.
It sounds like he's really thought about every angle when it comes to maximizing your financial well-being, hasn't he?
He has. He's incredibly thorough and always thinking several steps ahead.
Now, are there any specific types of life insurance policies that are particularly well-suited for this strategy?
Well, for married couples, a second-to-die guaranteed universal life policy could be a good fit. It only pays out after both spouses have passed away, so you get lower premiums.
Interesting. So it seems like there's a lot more to consider than just taking that RMD money and running.
Absolutely. It's important to have a plan and to think about your long-term goals.
And that's where someone like John White can really be a valuable asset, right?
Oh, definitely. He can help you navigate those complexities and create a plan that really works for you.
I think I'm starting to see why everyone raves about him. Okay, now let's shift gears a bit and talk about some of the more heartwarming options for using RMDs. What about investing in education, specifically for grandkids or other loved ones?
Oh, that's a wonderful idea. You can use your RMDs to contribute to a 529 college savings plan, and they come with some really nice tax advantages.
529 plans, I've heard of those, but could you remind me what makes them so special?
Sure, your contributions grow tax-deferred, and any withdrawals you make for qualified education expenses are completely tax-free.
Tax-free! Sign me up.
And there's another little perk called the grandparent loophole. It means that any contributions you make to a grandchild's 529 plan won't affect their eligibility for financial aid.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's like a stealth way to help them pay for college.
You could say that.
Okay, what if there's any money left over in the 529 after they graduate?
Believe it or not, they can actually roll those funds into a Roth IRA for their retirement. It's like giving them a head start on their financial future.
That's incredible. So many clever strategies to think about. It sounds like a chat with John White could really open up a whole world of possibilities I hadn't even considered.
He really does have a knack for thinking outside the box and coming up with creative solutions.
Speaking of creative solutions, what if someone simply doesn't need the money from their RMDs? Could they just give it away?
You're talking about gifting, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really generous way to share your wealth while you're still around to see the impact it makes. A lot of retirees find it incredibly fulfilling.
It definitely has that paying it forward vibe to it, doesn't it? Are there any rules or limits to how much you can gift?
There is an annual gift tax exclusion limit. In 2024, it's $18,000 per recipient, and it jumps up a bit to $19,000 in 2025.
That's pretty generous. Of course, another option for those who don't need the money is donating it to charity.
Oh, absolutely. That's a fantastic way to support causes you care about and potentially get a nice tax deduction in the process. John White's a big believer in making sure your financial decisions align with your values. And for a lot of people, charitable giving is a top priority.
He could probably even help you structure those donations in the most tax-efficient way, right?
You bet. He's a master at finding those little loopholes and maximizing your deductions.
He really is a one-stop shop for all things financial. Okay, now let's address the elephant in the room. Taxes. I'm guessing some folks might need to use their RMDs to pay their income taxes.
Yeah, that's definitely a reality for a lot of people. It's not the most exciting way to use that money, but it's certainly a practical one.
And John White can probably help you figure out if that's the best strategy for your situation.
Oh, definitely. He's got a great analytical mind, and he can really help you weigh the pros and cons of each option.
He's like a financial detective, isn't he? Uncovering the best strategy for each individual case.
He is. He's always looking for clues and putting the pieces together to create a solid plan.
Now, before we get too serious, we have to remember that RMDs can also be used for fun stuff.
That's right. Don't forget to enjoy yourself.
You've worked hard, you've saved diligently, it's time to reap the rewards.
Exactly. John White always reminds his clients that financial planning isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about living a fulfilling life.
So if you've always dreamed of taking that epic vacation, finally getting that kitchen remodel, or even just indulging in a hobby that brings you joy, don't be afraid to use your RMDs to make it happen.
Retirement is all about enjoying the fruits of your labor.
It sounds like John White would definitely approve.
He would. He's all about helping people achieve their dreams.
Well, I'm feeling a lot more optimistic about those RMDs now. It's clear we have a lot of choices, and those choices should be guided by our individual needs, goals, and values, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's important to emphasize one more time that navigating these choices can be tricky. There are so many factors to consider. It's easy to feel overwhelmed.
It's like trying to build a piece of IKEA furniture without the instructions, right?
Exactly.
And that's where having someone like John White in your corner can be so valuable. He can help you create a personalized RMD strategy that really aligns with your unique circumstances.
He's like your own personal financial GPS, guiding you to your destination.
Speaking of destinations, I have a feeling John might have some insights on another RMD strategy that we haven't even touched on yet.
Oh, you've got me intrigued. What is it?
It's all about real estate.
Real estate and RMDs. That's a new one.
Right. It might not be the first thing that comes to mind, but John White's always encouraging us to think outside the box when it comes to building wealth in retirement.
I mean, real estate definitely has that potential for long-term growth. It's a tangible asset. It can generate that rental income, and it often appreciates in value over time. But I'm curious, how do RMDs fit into all of this?
Well, picture this. You use your RMDs to buy a rental property.
Like a condo.
Sure, a condo, a vacation home, even a multifamily unit.
Okay, so you're a landlord, you're collecting rent, maybe enjoying some tax benefits along the way. But wouldn't that require like a massive upfront investment?
It could, but John White wouldn't suggest it if it wasn't manageable, would he? He might recommend using a portion of your RMDs as a down payment and financing the rest through a mortgage.
That makes sense. You're using those RMDs to build equity in a property without having to drain your entire savings.
Exactly. And remember, those rental payments can help cover your mortgage costs. So you're essentially using someone else's money to build your wealth.
Pretty smart.
Yeah.
But what about the day-to-day stuff that comes with owning a rental property? Dealing with tenants, repairs, all of that. It can be a lot.
That's where John White's network comes in. He's got connections with really good property managers who can handle all those details for you.
So you can enjoy the perks of owning real estate without the stress.
Exactly. It sounds like this real estate strategy is all about using your RMDs to generate that passive income and build wealth over time.
And it really fits with John's whole philosophy of finding ways to make your money work harder for you, especially in retirement when you want to, well, relax and enjoy life.
Right. I'm starting to see RMDs in a whole new light. It's not just about withdrawing money. It's about strategically using those funds to reach your goals, whatever those goals may be.
We've talked about so many possibilities. Covering expenses, paying off debt, boosting savings, reinvesting, supporting charities, helping family, and even treating ourselves. So many choices.
So many. And making those choices can be a lot easier when you have someone like John White to guide you, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. He's got the knowledge, the experience, and the connections to really help you create a personalized RMD plan.
He's like that financial architect, designing the blueprint for your financial future.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we wrap up this part, remember when we talked about donating RMDs to charity?
Yes, such a great way to support causes you believe in and maybe even get a nice tax deduction at the same time.
Exactly. But there's a specific way to do this that can really maximize those tax benefits. It's called a qualified charitable distribution, a QCD.
It sounds kind of technical.
It can be, but John White has this way of explaining things so clearly that anyone can understand. Basically, with a QCD, you can send money directly from your IRA to a qualifying charity, and it's completely tax-free. No need to itemize or anything like that.
So it makes things a whole lot easier come tax time.
You got it. And you know what else? There's a limit to how much you can donate this way. In 2024, it's $105,000 per person.
Really?
Yep. And it goes up a bit in 2025 to $108,000.
Wow. That's a lot of money you can give away without any tax worries. A smart move if you're into giving.
Now, let's face it, not all of our RMD decisions can be about those feel-good moments.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to tackle those not so fun but very important financial realities.
It's true. Like just covering essential expenses.
Exactly. Or, paying taxes.
Ugh, yeah. Can't avoid those. And that's where those R&Ds can come in handy.
You mean using them to pay our income tax bill?
Yep, that's what I'm talking about. I know it's not the most glamorous way to use that money, but it's a reality for lots of people.
Definitely. And something John White can definitely help you figure out, whether it's the best move for you or not. He really is like a financial detective.
He is. Always on the case. Now, before we move on to the next thing, gotta remember the fun stuff.
Yes. Don't forget to enjoy yourselves.
You've earned this money. You deserve to enjoy it.
Exactly.
Good.
I'm not talking about, being irresponsible, but, treating yourself to something special. Maybe it's a dream vacation you've always wanted to take, finally renovating that kitchen, or just doing something you love.
I know John would agree wholeheartedly. He's always saying financial planning isn't just about the numbers. It's about living a life you love.
So don't be afraid to use your RMDs to bring some excitement to your golden years, folks. Retirement should be about enjoying what you've worked so hard for, right?
Absolutely. It's time for new adventures, doing what you love, and making memories.
Well said. I feel like we've covered a lot in this deep dive so far. What stands out to you as the most valuable takeaway?
For me, it's realizing that RMDs aren't just about meeting a tax requirement. They're a chance to reach your goals, support the people you care about, and yes, even have some fun. But those opportunities, they can easily slip away if you don't have the right guidance.
Which brings us right back to John White.
Exactly. He's the one who can help you make sense of it all. He can help you create a personalized strategy that works with your values, goals, and everything you want to achieve.
He's like that trusted friend who always seems to have the best advice. And speaking of advice, I have a feeling John might have some thoughts on an RMD strategy that might surprise you. We'll get to that in the final part of our deep dive.
All right, you've really got me curious. What's this surprising RMD strategy that John White has up his sleeve?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, using RMDs for everything from paying bills to funding that dream vacation. But what about using them to invest in, wait for it, farmland?
Farmland. Wow, now that's thinking outside the box. Not something I would come up with on my own.
I know, right? It might sound a little unconventional, but John White has this amazing ability to find these unique opportunities, especially when it comes to alternative investments. He's seen firsthand how valuable farmland can be, particularly during uncertain economic times.
When you really think about it, it does make sense. Farmland is a limited resource, right? It's essential for producing food, and it tends to hold its value pretty well, even when the market takes a dip. But how would you even go about investing in farmland using your RMDs?
Well, there are a couple of ways you can approach it. You could buy farmland directly, which would obviously give you complete control over the property. Or you could invest in a farmland REIT. That's a real estate investment trust. But they specialize in agricultural properties. REITs offer more diversification, and you typically don't need as big of an initial investment.
That's interesting. So you could choose the level of involvement that fits your comfort zone and your financial advice, but wouldn't managing a farm be a ton of work?
It definitely could be. But that's where John White's expertise and connections come in. He can put you in touch with experienced farm managers who can take care of all the daily operations for you, so you get the benefits of owning the land without all the headaches.
That sounds much less stressful. So this farmland strategy is really about investing in something tangible, something essential, and potentially diversifying your portfolio and protecting yourself from inflation, right?
You got it. And it really goes hand in hand with John White's whole approach to financial planning. He's always thinking ahead and finding innovative ways to help his clients build and protect their wealth, especially in retirement.
It's amazing how he seems to have an answer for every financial challenge. Speaking of answers, I remember you mentioned that John might have some insights on another RMD strategy that we haven't even talked about yet.
Oh, right. I almost forgot. It's another way to potentially generate tax-free income in retirement using your RMDs.
Tax-free income. Now that definitely sounds like something I want to know more about.
This strategy involves using those RMDs to fund a special type of annuity. It's called a deferred fixed annuity. And these annuities allow your money to gray without being taxed. So you won't pay taxes on those earnings until you start taking withdrawals.
So you're putting off those taxes until later on in retirement when you might be in a lower tax bracket.
Exactly. Clever, right? But those RMDs still apply, don't they? Even with annuities.
That's what I was thinking.
They do. But here's the interesting part. With a deferred fixed annuity, you can pick a payout option that spreads out those RMDs over a longer period, maybe even over your entire lifetime.
So instead of taking a big chunk of money each year, you can stretch it out over time, which could really lower the amount of taxes you pay and make sure you have a steady stream of income throughout your retirement.
You got it. And the best part is, since the annuity earnings grow without being taxed, you're basically creating tax-free income when you start taking those distributions.
Now that's a powerful strategy. But annuities can be complicated. I bet it would be really important to have someone like John White to walk you through it all.
Absolutely. Choosing the right annuity can be overwhelming. There are so many options and things to consider. That's where John White's expertise really makes a difference. He can help you understand all the ins and outs of annuities and find one that matches perfectly with your financial goals and risk tolerance.
It really seems like he can make these complex financial ideas understandable for anyone. He's a financial superhero.
He is. He's like a financial navigator, guiding you through those choppy waters of retirement planning and making sure you get where you want to go safely.
It's comforting to know someone like that is out there helping people make sense of these tricky financial issues.
This whole deep dive has really opened my eyes to all the possibilities that RMDs offer. It's not just about taking a required distribution from your retirement account. It's about using that money strategically to reach your goals, right? Whether that's paying off debt, helping loved ones, enjoying your retirement, or even investing in farmland.
It's exciting to realize that RMDs don't have to be limiting. They can be empowering.
Couldn't agree more. And I think the most important lesson from all of this is that you don't have to go through this alone. John White is here to guide you every step of the way.
He's like a financial Sherpa leading you to the top of your financial mountain.
I love that. Well, that's all the time we have for our deep dive into the world of RMDs. But like always, there's so much more to learn. So keep researching, keep asking questions, and most importantly, schedule a call with John White. He's the expert you need to unlock the power of those RMDs and create a retirement that's truly fulfilling.
Don't forget, those RMDs are not a burden, they're an opportunity. Embrace those possibilities and make the most of this amazing chapter of your life.
Perfectly said. Until next time, happy planning, everyone.